This week's Commons Folk profile is that of the member who hails from Nova Scotia and left the classroom for the Tory backbench. Okay, we're here in the Routier Community Centre gym, something I don't know a whole lot about gyms, but here with Scott Armstrong, the MP from Nova Scotia. I'd pronounce the riding, but it'd take me 5 minutes to do it. But it's a beautiful part of the world. But tell me why we're in a gym. You've got a basketball history.
It's March, and it's March Madness. And in my background, I was a basketball coach and a basketball player. So it's March Madness. Championships are on. We have the actual national championship here in Ottawa this week. I'm excited about that. And anytime we're in March, we try to get in the gym and shoot a couple of hoops.
Now you come here with MPs, right, on a regular basis?
Yeah, we come on Wednesday nights and we play a little pickup, Conservative MPs and staffers, and then and we actually play the other MPs in a tournament to raise money at the end of the year.
Okay, now you come out of a school principal job, right? So does that sort of prepare you for life in the House of Commons, dealing with all those troublesome kids?
Well, I was in elementary, so a lot of people say the House of Commons can be related to kindergarten, but you know, there's a lot of skills that you get as a teacher and an administrator and a school principal that transfer into politics. You have to deal with parents, and you have to deal with the parents and their children. So you're dealing with constituents. You're dealing with a lot of the same skills carry over.
Now you're chair of the Atlantic Caucus,
right?
And Atlantic Canada is having a little bit of an economic challenge right now.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about what has to be done. I know it's not culture of defeat, but culture of improvement somehow. How do you do that?
Well, look, we've got two major projects coming online. First is the Lower Musquodoboit Falls development. That is going to produce green energy, hydro energy for Atlantic Canada. There'll be energy there we can export to the eastern seaboard of the United States as well as to some other provinces. And that's a $7.4 billion project. That's going to bring a lot of skilled tradesmen back from out west, and that's going to rebuild some of that skilled trade set that we have in Atlantic Canada. On top of that, we have the $25 billion shipbuilding contract that Irving won in the Halifax shipyards. That is going to, again, bring a lot of people back from out west. It's going to train a whole new generation of shipbuilders. So we actually have a bright future in Atlantic Canada, and we're just waiting for those projects to get up and going. And you're going to see a boom out there, I believe.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the more specific ones. Everyone thinks of Atlantic Canada, they think lobsters.
Right.
There's a big fight going on between what size matters and the prices. What's going on there?
Well, of course, the lobster industry is kind of a boom and bust industry. And then this year what we saw is more supply of lobsters, so it drove the price down. We saw greater competition in Maine. And one of the things that makes the lobster industry thrive is when the U.S. is really booming, particularly in the eastern seaboard. A lot of people eat those lobster in the fine restaurants in New York. Well, the economy's been so bad there the last few years, we've seen less of demand in New York and the eastern seaboard for our lobster exports. And this is one of the reasons we're trying to do a lot of work internationally to develop increased trade routes, particularly with Europe. So we're going to see a lot more lobster exported to the European countries in the next several years, and that's going to hopefully help build that industry as well.
Well, if the price is down, the demand should go up, shouldn't it? Like,
well,
in theory,
for sure. I mean, when you can buy a lobster for $3.99 a pound, you're probably going to see a few more of them sold. So it is boom and bust, but supply and demand works in any field, but particularly in the fishing, it's really important.
One thing, obviously, lobster is a seasonal industry, and that's one that the employment insurance reforms are getting a lot of pushback. How are you dealing with that? Because you've had protests in front of your office, and I know people are upset in your area.
Well, one of the things about it is there's a lot of misinformation out there about the changes that have been made in employment insurance. What we're trying to do is make sure we have a program in place that connects people to jobs that exist. And in a small rural town, in my riding, a place called in Tatamagouche where I was from, or Wallace, or some of these other smaller towns, there's not a lot of jobs available in the winter. So if you're a seasonal worker and you're laid off for the winter and there's no jobs to apply for, EI is going to be there for you. And if you look at the actual text of the changes, there's no threat to seasonal workers in the rural areas. But if there are jobs available in your skill set near to your community, you'd be expected to apply for those jobs. And I think that's reasonable. And I think once you explain the changes to most people, they understand them. A lot of it is rhetoric, a lot of it is misinformation that's been put out there.
All right, a short answer to this one. Maritime Union, Mike Duffy, the senator from PEI, has proposed it. Good idea or very bad idea? Well,
I think what we need to do in Atlantic Canada, really, and is to look towards more cooperation between the provinces. There's things we can do to lower costs for everybody. You're talking in the entire region, for example, there's only 32 federal seats. It's the size of Toronto. So to have all these different layers of bureaucracy probably isn't the most effective way to run our region. So more cooperation is something I think the provinces currently are working on. They're actually doing things. Like, for example, they're purchasing school buses together. So, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick work together to have, one contract for purchasing school buses. That's the type of cooperation we need in the future.
The last question, obviously, is tell us something about Scott Armstrong that not everyone would know.
Well, actually, I'm a conservative, and you can trace my roots back to Sir John A. Macdonald.
What?
His sister is a great aunt of mine. So, I always say my family's been around this party since the beginning.
Conservative right back to 1867 and beyond. Okay. Scott, go shoot some hoops. See if you can sink one from here. Can you sink one from here?
We'll give it a shot.
Oh, that was pretty close, actually.
Close.